Welcome back, everybody. Today we're going to be installing these amber LED light pods on the front of the Resurrection Cherokee. So guys, I'm gonna be completely honest with you. Lighting is not something I've ever really been too concerned about when it comes to my off-road vehicles. However, that's gonna be changing today. Moving forward, lighting is gonna be something very important for this build, which is why we're gonna be installing some forward-facing lights and some chase lights onto the Resurrection Cherokee today. We've got some goods on the table. We've got a box right here and a box right here, and you can kind of see what we've got right here. We've got some Auxbeam lights. I am in love with these things, and they're not even on the Jeep yet. Let's take a look at them. So I have opened this box, just so you know. This isn't an unboxing. I've already seen them. We've got some stickers and whatnot right there. It looks like some directions. And then we've got the goods. We've got some lights. These actually have the cover on them right now. Let me see if I can get it off. Wow. I love these things. These things look so nice. So yeah, I went with amber. We've got some amber lights for the front. These are going on the front of the Jeep. And then right here, these are gonna be the chase lights. We went with amber as well. These things look just as nice. Yeah, those are gonna be for the chase lights. We'll be getting back to those later on. We're gonna be working on the fronts first. All of the auxiliary lighting on this Jeep, I want to be amber. Amber is much better suited for those snowy conditions, which we're probably gonna see here in the Colorado Rockies, as well as those dusty conditions, which we're only an hour from Moab, so we're gonna see plenty of dusty desert conditions. That goes for the front and rear. I also already have some rock lights on the Cherokee with only 2 modes, amber and clear. That's literally the only modes you need. 2 colors with very specific purposes, amber and white or clear, whatever you want to call it. So we've got 2 front-facing lights. We've got the covers like you already saw. We can run these on the road if we need to. Then we've got a big wiring harness that I haven't opened up yet, along with some hardware and some bracketry. We're gonna be installing these somewhere like in front of the winch, like off to the side of the winch, along with the brackets that these lights came with. We're gonna have to make our own brackets because of where I wanna put them. Let's go look at the front of the Jeep and I'll show you all what I mean. If we're looking at the front right here, I want the lights to go somewhere right here at this open space on both sides. Got a little less space because of where the winch line goes on this side, but I want them kind of below that bull bar, if you will. So let's see what we can come up with. Also should note, I'm gonna make a bracket, like I said, come off, I think of this bolt right here. I don't wanna weld anything if I don't have to. So we're gonna try to use that bolt. Maybe we'll have to do some welding. Not really too sure yet. But like I said, let's see what we can come up with. This bumper is built by a company pretty well known in the Cherokee community named Affordable Off-Road. I bought this bumper for Ashley for her birthday 7 years ago. It was the one she wanted, so it was the one she got. It was a non-winch bumper to begin with, but once we actually started to do some challenging wheeling in this Jeep, I fabbed up the winch plate along with some beefier unibody tie-in brackets, and it's been a great bumper since. I do feel like we have outgrown the look of the bumper a bit, but it's literally the only thing that doesn't need work done to it on this Jeep at the moment, hence the reason I don't want to be welding to it and painting it. I just want to make these light brackets their own separate pieces. The original plan was to fab up brackets that use the fair lead mounting holes, but after more thought, that would require some bending or welding, so to just make this as simple as possible, I turned to using the 4-winch mounting holes. I actually had to go cut out a second piece because the first one didn't line up all that great. And for some reason, it cut this piece super dirty. You can kind of, I don't know if you guys can see that. There's like cuts in it. It was actually much worse before, but I took a sanding disc through it. It cleaned it up pretty good, so we're still gonna be able to use this piece. I think I'm gonna have to clean the tip of that plasma cutter though. But yeah, let's go see how this one works. Using the winch mounting holes over those fair lead mounting holes was definitely the way to go. I'll just have to get some longer bolts and we should be good there. Wow, check this out. That is gonna look so good. Here you can kind of see, kind of got a glare because of the light I'm shining on the Jeep, but you just gotta get the other one on over here. I should also note that it decided to mount these lights, this bracket, we'll look at the old one I got right here. I decided to mount them, this hole and that hole is for the winch mounting holes. It was gonna be easier to make a bracket using the winch mounting holes rather than the fair lead mounting hole right here. So we just went ahead and did that. It was a pretty simple bracket. Obviously, of course I messed it up, but we should be able, I'm gonna go ahead and cut out a second bracket right now. Should be the same exact bracket for this side. We've also got a little bit of space right here as well as here. So this light isn't hitting anything. I'm gonna have to run this wire in right behind the grill. Probably run it through the inside of the grill, kind of where we got these winch lines going through. Yeah, looking really cool so far. Let's get the other one on. So this is going to become a running theme. You can see this plasma cutter is cutting this piece incredibly dirty. The consumables need to be replaced on the torch. I don't have any. I don't want to wait a week for them to come in before I can actually work on this. So I'm just gonna clean up the pieces the best I can. I'll get some consumables coming for the next time we use the machine. So I got the lights mounted. Everything's just mounted loosely right now. The winch is still a little bit loose. Before we go any further, I want to turn these lights on just to show you guys. I already turned them on because I couldn't help myself. I want to show you guys how awesome these look turned on. Like I showed you all earlier, these lights come with a really nice harness. I got it loosely installed, just like everything else right now. You can kind of see it right here. It's running down to the battery on the floor since we don't have the battery inside of the Jeep right now. Right here, we've got the switch for the lights. This is the switch that comes with the harness. We might be switching this out actually. There's two switches on this switch, buttons I should say. The first one is the running lights for the lights, and the second one is the actual lights. They're pretty bright. I don't know if the camera is doing it justice. Let's turn off these two lights. They're pretty bright. Pretty nice. So we're gonna go ahead and get this harness and all the electrical actually installed into the Jeep. And once we do that, we're gonna go ahead and test these out again. We're gonna put our van in front of the lights so you can actually see what the lights are doing. So let's go get this electrical installed. I ended up not routing the wiring through the grill like the winch lines. For one, the connectors do not fit through the grill, and two, if I ever have to remove the grill, I'll have to remove these wires as well. I ended up just routing them under the grill and behind the bumper, which is going to be a better spot for them anyway. From here, instead of working on the wiring like I said I was going to, I'm kind of all over the place. I decided to mount the chase lights. I came up with something I'm very happy about, and it ended up saving a ton of time actually. So I'm getting ready to run wiring for the front and for the rear, and then I looked over to my chase lights and I just had like an epiphany moment. Excuse me for it being super bright out, but this right here is what I'm thinking I'm gonna do for the rear chase lights. So this is not the Jeep. This is the tent that we usually have on the Jeep. We don't have it on right now because my garage is pretty short. Jeep is up pretty high already. Whenever the Jeep has to come into the shop, the tent has to come off. But for a while now, I've been thinking of how to mount these chase lights because there's not really a good spot to mount them on the back of the Jeep here. We're not gonna have all this stuff in the way. This bumper is going. We're just gonna have one big 40 back here, so we're not gonna have to worry about this roto packs, or usually there's Max tracks on here as well. But besides that, I wanted them mounted up high because that's usually how chase lights are mounted, up high. And I was thinking, since I don't have a rack, usually the tent goes on these stock roof rails. I was thinking I was gonna have to build some bracket that clamps onto this last rail and comes out quite a bit, and then have the chase light mounted to it. Since it was gonna be so long, it was gonna be over a foot long, that bracket would probably be bouncing when we're going down the road or down the trail. And then I had this idea that I just showed you all over here. This is the same idea, except we're mounted to the back of the tent. We have a nice piece of T-slot aluminum that the tent uses to mount to the Jeep. And I thought that is a perfect spot to mount these lights on. I was thinking I was still gonna need to make a bracket that attaches from the T-slot to the light, but I actually just went ahead and used the bracket, the piece of aluminum that the tent actually uses to bolt to the Jeep. And it actually looks perfect. Like, this is literally awesome. This is the exact bracket I was gonna make, basically. Now, I still might make my own bracket. I was thinking of making the bracket a little longer so it can bolt in two spots, so this thing has no chance of pivoting. But for now, for mock-up, this is actually really nice. And I'm sure if I tighten this down enough, we're not gonna have any problem on the trail or on the road. So for mock-up, we're gonna leave it just like this. This looks really awesome. Down the road, this Jeep is gonna be getting a cage, so once we have the cage, then we can take those roof rails right off, and we can mount the tent right onto the cage, and then we can mount these lights and along with some other lights right onto the cage as well. But for now, I think this is a great idea. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Going this route does mean that when the tent is off of the Jeep, we won't be able to have the chase lights. But I think for the most part, other than when this Jeep comes into the garage, that tent is gonna be on the Jeep. So I'm really not too worried about that. Just about every time we go out in the Jeep to go wheeling, we're camping. So that tent is gonna be on the Jeep for the most part. Now we're gonna move on to the wiring now. I think we're gonna start on the rear first. And the reason for that is because I was thinking for a very long time before I made this video, how the heck I'm gonna get the wiring for the rear chase lights into the Jeep. The front is gonna be a little easier. You just go through the engine bay, then find a way through the firewall. But the rears are gonna be a little tougher, like I said. I was thinking where this harness could enter the Jeep without leaving a big space for water to enter the Jeep as well. And I came up with what I think is a really good idea. We're gonna be using this Bulkhead electrical connector to get the wiring into the Jeep without having a big half-inch hole drilled into our roof full of wiring and silicone. I know most people are doing that, and I'm not gonna be part of that. We're gonna do it the right way. So this is just your basic Deutsch connector that's been converted into a bulkhead connector. So we're gonna have to slice this into our harness, and this part is gonna be bolted to the top of the Jeep or the roof of the Jeep. And then this part coming off of our chase lights in the back is gonna connect right into that. Right around this rectangle here, you can see we're gonna be able to bolt it to the roof of the Jeep. And this one didn't come with a gasket, which is unfortunate, but it's totally fine. We're gonna be bolting this to the top of the Jeep. This is gonna be facing up like this, and we're gonna be using RTV to seal around this surface. And then this coming off of our chase lights, gonna plug right in. This is definitely going to be a very clean and effective way to get this wiring into the Jeep and up to the power distribution center. This bulkhead connector I got just off of Amazon. I believe it was under 20 bucks or something like that. The only thing I'm worried about is we don't have a headliner in the Jeep yet, but we're going to be doing one down the road. I don't have the backing plate for the headliner, so I'm afraid I don't want this to come down too far so it interferes with the headliner in the future. So we have to find a spot. I think I already did. I already searched a little bit that this isn't going to interfere with the headliner once it's in there. So that spot has to be somewhere around this thick. And then up top there, it shouldn't be a problem. It's gonna be mounted something like this as well. And now that I think of it, this is all gonna be mounted underneath of the tent. So that's gonna help with water intrusion as well. Say if the Jeep is parked and it's raining out, that tent is gonna block all the rain. So I didn't even think of that. That's good as well. So anyways, let's go find that spot in the Jeep. Let's get a hole drilled. We're gonna have to wallow it out to make it a rectangle hole. And then we'll get this installed into the Jeep and then we'll get the rest of the wiring figured out. So what I'm thinking, you can see we've got the sound bar. It's just the plastic sound bar that is usually under the headliner, and it's usually held up by the headliner. I actually have it self-tapped to the side of the Jeep right there. So once we have a headliner, this is gonna be hidden, but behind this sound bar, let me climb up here. We've got quite a bit of room where we can mount these lights. So I have the speaker hole open right now. There's a lot of room inside of that speaker hole. The speaker doesn't take up all that room. So I'm thinking we can find a spot somewhere in there where we can drill the hole and have the wires come through that way. I'm also thinking once we have the headliner installed into the Jeep, we're not gonna be able to access literally anywhere else other than behind those speakers. So if we ever have to access the wiring, we just have to take out the speaker, which is pretty easy. It's just 2 bolts, and we'll be able to access our chase light wiring. So I'm gonna go ahead and find the best spot behind that speaker to drill our hole. So here is the finished product for the bulkhead connector. I had the last screw or the last hole. I have like these little neoprene, I think they're called neoprene. They're like a little rubber washer. I have them on all 4 screws. This one kept folding in on itself, not really sure why. I put a washer on top of this one. All the other ones do not have a washer on them. It's just the screw, neoprene washer. Then I had a washer on the bottom below the roof, and then the nut, the nylon lock nut. This one, I ended up putting a washer, the screw, washer, the neoprene washer, and then so on. And it also folded up on this one. So I think I just have like a bad rubber washer on this one, so I'm gonna have to pick up a new one. But other than that, it looks pretty good. This is sealed with RTV all the way around, and then I used thread sealant on all the screws, so we shouldn't have any problems with water passing through the roof. I may also go get some clear silicone and put a nice thin layer over all the screws and all over this surface right here, just as an added protection to make sure no water is going to pass through this roof. That is something we cannot have happening. And I want it to be clear so there's not a big black glob of RTV up here. So anyways, this is all taken care of right now. We're gonna have to start looking at the harnesses for the front and the rear, but I'm thinking we'll probably start with the rear since we're already over here. We are going to have to cut these up. I know that's not what Auxbeam wants to be hearing, but to get it to work for what I'm doing, they're gonna have to be cut up and modified a little bit. So we are going to start, we're gonna start on the rear, like I said, which is this one right here. You can see we've got the single button on this one. In the front, we've got the 2 buttons for the daytime running lights, if you want to call them that, the fog lights or whatnot, and then the actual pods. So for the rear, let's see, it's probably not gonna be long enough either, I'd imagine. We got quite a bit to work with, but I don't know, we'll see. So these go to the chase lights on the back of the Jeep. We're gonna have to put a cut right here and splice in that bulkhead connector that we just installed. The middle part of this should be all good. We've got a relay, we've got a fuse and the battery connections. Then down here is where the switch is. We're gonna be reworking this because we're gonna be using our own switch. This switch is pretty nice. It looks pretty durable. It has like a sticky side to it, so we could stick it to the dash if we wanted to. But we are not going to be using that. We're probably gonna be cutting it somewhere right before the switch, and we're gonna be installing our own. So let's go ahead, let's start with this end. I might as well show you all now. Same thing goes with the other one. We've got two connections right here. Where are they? Two connections right here for the front facing lights, the LED pods, the 5-inch LED pods. And then in the middle somewhere, this one is actually much longer than the rear, which is nice, so that should help us out. We shouldn't have to modify the length of this one whatsoever. Even the switch seems longer, which is cool. So we will be same thing with the switch, except this one is the double, like I said. We're gonna be modifying this switch, so we're gonna be cutting that out as well. And then in the middle here, we've got the same thing, relay, fuse, and the battery connections. I think how I'm gonna be doing this is I'm gonna go ahead and do all the work to the Jeep. I'm gonna get all of this wiring installed, and then I'll let you guys know exactly how I did it, just so I don't have to set up a camera 100 times. It's gonna be a couple hours for me, but probably a couple seconds for you. YouTube magic. A few hours of work later and a day late, I've got all of the wiring in the Jeep. I definitely got a little bit carried away. So I'm gonna show you guys exactly what I did right now. So we're gonna go ahead and start at the back of the Jeep. I've got a lot going on back here especially. I had a lot of aftermarket wires, you can also see them right back here, that I had installed into the Jeep previously, and I wanted to clean this all up before I ran even more wires to the back here. I've removed every single aftermarket wire that I had previously put into the Jeep, and I've started from scratch. I had 2 wires for the rear locker air solenoid right here. This is actually kept in this rear quarter. I had another 2 coming back to the rear. We have a backup camera in this Jeep right here. So we had wires for that coming from the front. And then we had the 4 new, so I guess that's not many wires. That's only 4 coming from the front. But then I was adding 4 more, which you can see right here. These are going through that crossover connector that we put in the ceiling. So in total, I had 8 lights coming from the back here. That's not even including the rock lights that are already in the Jeep. So I ripped out all that old wiring and I made my own harness. You can kind of see it right here. This is the end of it. All of the wires, we've got 8 wires coming through this harness. 4 right here going up to the chase lights, 2 right here are gonna get routed to this rear view camera eventually in the future. And then if we follow this down, this comes down this pillar and we have it spliced right here. This is gonna be for our rear locker, these 2 wires. So we're gonna end up wrapping these ones with the same stuff we're using here. This is some really nice wrap for these wires that I got off Amazon. I actually had this for a previous project. I think I already said that before. And I just had a ton of this stuff left over. So I was able to use it for this project for literally everything back here. Everything in the Jeep for that matter. But yeah, this is really nice. So this, we've got those 8 wires and then this runs all the way to the front, kind of where the driver's seat is. So let's go check that out next. So running from the back, we've got the same harness right here. It's got those 8 wires inside of it. This is gonna be, eventually, this is not finished yet, obviously. This is gonna be connected to this harness that is also down here. Just zip tied to that. And then it's gonna be hidden by the plastic trim that is supposed to go right here. And then it runs up into the dash right here and splits into 2. Well, actually more like 3. We've got 1 leg coming up towards the center right here. You can actually see it right here a little bit. I don't have anything tied up yet. This leg is going to be used for the rear view camera and the rear locker switch. And eventually we're gonna end up replacing this panel because we're gonna get rid of these 2 switches that we don't use, and we're gonna end up having an actual spot for the rear locker switch and an actual spot for a front locker switch, and then probably a compressor switch as well. But more on that down the road. Continuing over here, another leg goes into the engine bay, and we'll get to that in just a second. And another leg runs up the A-pillar. The leg running up the A-pillar is going to go to our switches that we have right over here. You can actually see them lighting up a little right there. But let's go look in the engine bay first and look at that wiring, then we'll come back to the switches. I spent way too much time on this, but I'm very happy I did so because I was able to make the wiring exactly how I wanted, and just to clean it up a little bit. It was a little messy, I'm not gonna lie, it was a little messy before, and now it's very nice and clean. It's kind of too bad you're not gonna see any of that because it's wiring, it's gonna be hidden behind all the plastic trim. But to me, I know that behind that trim, it's gonna be very nice. So we've got the harness coming in from right over here. It's actually 2 harnesses over here. This harness is really like 3 harnesses, We've got the one coming from the back of the Jeep. We've got the engine bay harness, and then we've got the one coming from the overhead center console, coming down this A-pillar. So basically 3 harnesses. The 2 harnesses coming from the inside of the Jeep come to 1 harness in this engine bay. And obviously it's not done yet over here where the 2 harnesses, you can actually see them right here. The 2 harnesses meet with this 1 engine bay harness. I'm actually thinking about putting a plug right here. I'm gonna have to order something that is what, like 12 pins or something, so I can disconnect this, and just so it looks a little cleaner, honestly. And mainly so I can disconnect the engine bay harness from the 2 harnesses inside the Jeep, because maybe in the future we have to diag a wire or something. It'll just make it a lot easier. So those 2 harnesses come to this harness. This wraps around to where the battery is going to be. Let's go check that out over there. We've got the harness running up over here to our battery. This battery is not mounted yet because I already tried it. The original battery tray is not gonna work with these coilover towers. I gotta finish the coilover towers before I can figure out the exact placement of the battery. Since this is an AGM battery, we can mount this however we want. We can mount it sideways, we can mount it upside down if we really wanted to. I think we're gonna have more room actually if I mount it to the coilover tower. So in a future video when we actually make the front plate for this coilover tower, I think I'm gonna make a mount for the battery to mount to that front plate. We'll see. For now, it's just tucked in here very loosely. So we've got the connections from the harness coming to here, and then we've got a harness running from the battery to our front lights. It's actually, this one's also not done. I gotta finish the end right here, but this one runs down here. Those 2 wires right here, these are actually for the winch, they run down. So this one kind of follows that, and it's hidden behind the bumper here where it connects to the lights. I think it's very cleanly done. Obviously, like I said, guys, we still got a lot of work. We got to tuck everything in. I'm not gonna bore you all with that because I'm honestly not gonna do it quite yet because we still got a ton to do in here. Same thing with inside of the Jeep. But once this is all tied up and everything's nice and clean, you're not even gonna know that this is running down there. I think it's gonna be pretty nice. So this is actually part of that harness that I cut out. I actually had too much left over, so I cut some of this out. So I can use this for something else in the future. But this is just give you an idea of exactly what this stuff is. This is this loom. You can see it has some give to it. So you can actually fit, oh, it's blurry. You can actually fit quite a bit of wires inside of this. It basically stretches out a little bit. I honestly thought that this loom was gonna be too big for this amount of wires, but because this stuff is stretchy, it honestly stretches really nicely to what I got. I got like eight wires inside of here. Actually, no, 6 wires inside of this one. And it honestly stretches to it pretty well. The only other thing I wish I could have done for these harnesses is gotten multiple different colors. You can see all I got was red and yellow. That's just what I had lying around. That would have been the next best thing. To have multiple different colored wires, and then I could have made like my own wiring diagram for future use. I'll leave a link to this stuff down in the description below, because honestly, this stuff is so nice. Right off Amazon. That goes for the lights as well. I'll leave a link down below for the front pods I got and the rear chase lights, along with the switches I also put inside of the Jeep. The switches are from Amazon. There's literally dozens upon dozens of switches that you can choose from, so it can be a little overwhelming. So I just want to say that I'm happy with those switches, so I'll leave the link down below for those. We're here inside of the Jeep now. This thing is an absolute mess. You all know that from last video already. But I spent a lot of time on these switches up here. I had to do a lot of cutting to the original Auxbeam harness. Sorry, Auxbeam. But it was well worth it for my application. The harnesses that the lights come with are very nice and honestly very quality, but it just wasn't gonna work for me as is, so I had to make it my own. So let's look at the switches. We mounted them on our overhead center console. So here are the switches on our overhead center console. We've got fog lights right here, LED, basically the LED pods. Those are both for the front. So this is more like daytime running lights, I guess we could say, than fog lights, but they didn't have a daytime running lights option. So fog lights, light pods for the front. It's like the brighter ones. Next to that is going to be chase lights and then rock lights. I actually have a different rock light switch coming in for this because this is just a 2-position. The old switch for my rock lights is actually right here, and it needs to be a 3-position switch. So I have one coming in. It's coming from China, so it's taken a while, so I didn't have it for the end of this video. But basically it needs to be in the middle, it has to be off. To the left it has to be, or whatever, left to right. One position it has to be white, and then the other position is orange. Orange or amber. I don't have multicolored RGB, rock lights. I think the only colors you honestly need are white or amber. Those 2 colors actually serve a purpose compared to, say, red, blue, yellow. I don't think you need any of that. If you're doing some technical wheeling at night, the white lights help a lot. And also, if you're doing some wheeling at night, say in blizzard or snowy conditions or dusty conditions, the amber are gonna help you out with that. Only 2 colors you need, amber and white. So I'm gonna get these all turned on. Oh, I should also note that I actually, well, let's look at this. I'll pull one out. there's a ground on one of these. I think it's this one right here. There's a ground on all of these right here. I have to hook these up in order for when I press the switch for this top light to actually light up. So right now I don't have them grounded, so they're not gonna light up in the on position, up here at least, because I'm waiting for the correct rocker switch to come in for this, and then I'll get that taken care of. But you can actually see right here, in the off position, this is red or orange, I think. I think you can get it in a couple different colors. And then in the on position, once this is grounded, this should be orange as well as that. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn on all the switches, and we're gonna see exactly what the lights look like at night. It's nighttime right now, so we should be able to get a pretty good idea of how well these lights are gonna do. Fog lights, let's go check those ones out first. So, nice and dark outside. We've got the Jeep right here, and behind the Jeep we have the van. You can't even see it because it's so dark out. So we should be able to get a pretty good idea how well these lights are doing. So right now we have the fog, I'm calling them the fog lights or the daytime running lights. There's two brightness options on these light pods, and this is the dimmer of the two. So you can see these honestly aren't gonna throw all that much light. It's lighting up the Jeep that much right there. So let's go turn on the actual light pods now. So I'll turn the fog lights or the daytime running lights off now, and we'll turn on the pods. They are bright. Let's go turn off the shop lights actually to get a really, really good idea. That is so awesome. Yeah, these are gonna be nice. They are, you can now, I'm in the way. Now you can see the van. You can perfectly see the Jeep right here. That is bright. That is so cool. That is gonna be nice on those dusty and snowy conditions on the trail. Yeah, it's literally lighting up everything. That is so cool. All right, let's go check out the chase lights now. So the chase lights, as y'all know, they're mounted on the tent. I don't have the tent mounted onto the Jeep right now, so I removed one of the pods from the tent and just set it on top of the Jeep and connected it to the wiring harness, just so we can get an idea and actually see at least one of them lit up. So let's go turn off those front pods and turn on the chase lights. So this, we're gonna have to turn off the shop lights for this one, definitely. Nice, that is actually throwing a lot of light. That is so awesome. And that's only one of them too. That's gonna be pretty nice out on the trail. It's gonna be awesome out on the trail, honestly. That is throwing a very good amount of light. I'm pretty happy about that. We definitely got a lot done on the Jeep this video. It may not look like it, but a decent amount of progress was made. Maybe not on the actual one-ton swap, but progress was made overall. I'm honestly not usually the one to install lights onto my rigs, but I am very excited for these Auxbeam lights. They look amazing on the Jeep, especially those front ones. They look absolutely gorgeous. I think it's exactly what that front end needed just to tie everything together. It's early spring here in Colorado right now, and I already can't wait till next winter so we can go test those things out in a snowstorm. That is going to be a good time. So I appreciate everyone who's made it this far into the video. This is a very different video than the fabrication videos that we've been doing here lately. The past couple videos, honestly, we haven't made much progress on the one-ton swap, but that's going to change here next video. We're going to be working on the actual one-ton swap again because we've got a lot of progress we have to make in order to get this Jeep done by June. That is the ultimate goal. And by looking at it, we're cutting it close. This is a one-man show right here. I gotta go edit this video right now to get it out for y'all in time. And so I can work on the next thing that needs to be done on the Jeep. Another reason we haven't really been doing one-ton swap stuff is because I'm waiting for some parts to come in. They're taking quite a while. But hopefully by next week, next video, we should have those parts in. Let me know what y'all think of what we did in the Jeep today, what you think of the series so far. We're having a video come out every single Wednesday at 6 a.m. until this Jeep is done, drive out of the shop and out onto the trail. Pretty ambitious goal, but so far we're like 3 full months in, and I've been able to keep that promise to y'all so far. That's pretty amazing, honestly. I'm gonna try to keep it up as long as I possibly can. So I'm gonna keep this short for y'all. I gotta run inside and start editing. I appreciate everyone watching. I love seeing all the new subs and all the new comments. Leave me a comment, by the way. I will respond. I will respond to every single comment as long as it's not rude. If you're gonna be rude, just make sure it's funny. Anyways, I appreciate y'all for watching. We'll see you out on the trail, and we'll see you next time. Shoot. One more thing, guys. I just gotta tell you all this because I am extremely excited. 2 aux lockers and gears for the front and the rear axle are on order. I know I've been saying for the past couple weeks that we're only gonna be doing a front locker just to save some money for right now, and then eventually before the winter, I was hoping to do a rear locker as well, but that has changed. As of filming this right now, I have 2 aux lockers and gears for both these axles on order. I am so happy about that. I am super pumped. So we're gonna be doing that very shortly, along with the rockers. Don't worry about that. We're gonna be doing rockers and boat sides. I know everyone really wants to see the rock sliders and the boat sides. Anyways, that's all. I'll see you guys on the trail, and I'll see you next time.